Okay, let's get this show started with a live check on the Wall Street today. Actually, the three major indices that we track, usually the S&P 500, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and the Nasdaq, seeing some really testy times in the 2.5 hours of trading that has happened today. Look at that, the Nasdaq down 3.6%, the S&P 500 now below the 800 levels is down 3.9%, Dow Jones also down 3.2%. So a significant drop in the US markets, this despite $1.4 trillion announced by the government to try and rescue the economy, $800 billion or so in the stimulus package that Barack Obama is about to sign, and then another $700 billion almost coming in terms of the financial recovery bill that has been passed by the Congress. So one industry that is seeing record lows is the United States financial services industry. Look at Bank of America. If it hasn't slid enough already, it's down 8.2% already for the day. Other biggies like JP Morgan, Citigroup, and AIG also seeing significant losses. So a sea of red in the financial services industry. And indeed, this has been a global trend. Look at that. The United States technology industry actually doing no better, although the losses have been less significant. But Microsoft and Google are down over 3.5% each for the day. Cisco Systems, another bellwether, an important US company, a large company, once the largest in the world, is down 2.67%. And Intel, another major US company, the chip provider for the majority of the world's computers, is also down about 1.7%. So the bleeding continuing in the financial services sector, in the tech sectors, and most sectors in the United States. And look at those Indian ADRs, technology ADRs of Wipro, Infosys, and Patni also down significantly. Wipro and Infosys down over 4%, and Patni actually staving off some of the losses. It's actually down 2% for the day, but again, negativity in the sector. Look at that Satyam ADR that we've been following today. The big news coming out here in India is that the board of Meta, it's another company that was promoted by Satyam, is also going to be dissolved by the company law board, as they have found instances of fraud also for the Meta's company's infrastructure and properties. So that's the news coming out of Satyam, but not a lot of decline in the US market for the ADR. If we take a look at some other ADRs, the ICICI as well as HDFC, the two financial services stocks, are also down in the United States. ICICI down 11.23%. MTNL, the 3G service provider here in India, is down about 7%, and Dr. Reddy's pharmaceutical company is also down about 3.5% in trading in the United States. These, of course, are cues for how some of these securities might do in India. So not good news coming in from India, not good news coming in from the United States today. And indeed, it seems like the global markets are in turmoil. Let's get some views now from our expert joining us all the way from the United States of America today. Joining us for NASDAQ Live is Mr. Mike Holland, who is the chairman of Holland and Company. Mr. Holland, we're excited to talk to you today. It just looks like the bleeding is not stopping in India, in the US, and in world markets. What is going on right now in the United States, despite that huge stimulus bill and the financial bailout that has been promised by the government? How come the markets are just not getting up to where they should be?
Mihir, your question is well asked, in that there is very little going on economically in the U.S. right now. The numbers have been dramatic the last several weeks. The consumer has pretty much stopped consuming, with the exception of places like Walmart, the deep discount kinds of places where they're looking to save some money. So for right now, we need a stimulus package along with some government changes that will breed some confidence that will get the consumer back in. But right now, there's very little economic activity, and unfortunately, in contrast to recessions I've experienced in the past here in the U.S., this is a global phenomenon. I travel around different parts of the world, and what I've observed recently is that this is everywhere.
Indeed, and let's talk about that stimulus package that is being rolled out. $787 billion. Of course, the US GDP is about $14 trillion. So this represents over 5% of the US GDP, a huge amount of money. In fact, some people are saying that the legislation that is going to come into Barack Obama's time is unsurpassed in terms of the amount of money that is involved. Can we talk? Let me break down the stimulus package a little bit. I guess some of it will come in tax cuts, some of it in infrastructure spending, and some of it in terms of relief for corporates. Can we get your viewpoints on some of the breakups of the stimulus bill that is being considered in the Congress?
Of course, and it's important to note that that is probably the major factor in the U.S. markets today, is that there is a great degree of disagreement among people, economists, and people on both sides of the political aisle and spectrum as to the effectiveness of this package. At the one end, Mr. Krugman from the New York Times, who is a noted economist with a liberal orientation, a democratic orientation, he over the weekend said it was not nearly large enough, needed a much bolder package. On the right side of the aisle, the Republicans are saying it's too large, and there's 200 billion of pork in there, and it doesn't have enough tax cuts. So what you're getting is what you described a second ago in your question, which is this Sturm und Drang in the U.S. markets, followed on by the rest of the world markets as well. So I think that what's happening right now is nobody really knows what this package is going to produce. As you said, it is enormous in terms of historical perspective on the one hand. On the other hand, we don't know how this is going to work. It may work very effectively, it may not work at all, but at this point, no one knows exactly how it's going to work. More important is we have to get some things out of the Treasury, which we didn't get last week in the United States, as to how they're going to approach this other side of the problem as well.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about some of the legislation that is coming along with this stimulus package. If you talk about some of the incentives that might be impacted, because there's been a cap on the bonuses that some of the executives at some of the financial institutions can receive if they get bailout money. There's also been a controversial new law that, of course, affects Indians in terms of the restriction on H-1B visas for companies that receive federal bailout money. Can we get your thoughts on this? Ironically, if you actually stop the best global talent from getting to companies that are in the most distress, wouldn't you think that that's not creating the right incentives and bringing the right people to troubled organizations?
Of course. The answer is clearly yes. And I believe that right now we're seeing democracy at its messiest, politics at its ugliest, and you're getting silly things happening. I believe the White House was not pleased, for example, with this restriction on compensation because, as you say, even within the U.S., you're going to get a migration of the best talent from the places where you need it the most, which would be the places that are under fire and are now being restricted as to how much they can reward people for doing smart things. They've done a lot of dumb things at these institutions. That's why they're in trouble, so that politicians can pile on. With respect to the talent coming into the U.S., it is clear to me, listening to people, particularly who run the technology companies in the United States, the successful ones, this is politics at its stupidest right now. This can only harm the U.S., and I believe that over time it will be remedied. But right now, as you say, it's a silly thing.
Indeed. So let's get your opinions on some of the markets around the world. Indeed, you travel a lot, and I've also analyzed some other markets. Let's get your viewpoints on the Asian market, specifically China, and also in Europe, of course, which is going through one of its toughest recessions in recent times.
Well, the Shanghai market, the A-share market, is in a world of its own. It might as well be on another planet. Up 20+% over the last several weeks. At a time when I was in Hong Kong a couple of weeks ago, the economy in Europe, in China, is for sure going in the same direction as the rest of the world, including Europe. And the Hong Kong market down several percentage points year to date is more reflective, I think, of what's going on. But make no mistake, in my mind, that the Chinese are in a better position to come out of this with less damage potentially than the U.S. because of how they went into it with less debt and so on, less leverage. So the deleveraging, Mihir, that's going on around the world is going to affect the people who are most leveraged, read Iceland and people like that, and therefore people like China will be doing better coming out the other side. Europe as well is in this incredible funk with different countries now who are doing much worse than others, straining the European Union. So that will be interesting to see. None of this right now is particularly helpful, but Eastern Europe is easily the toughest part. Poland, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, the various countries in Eastern Europe are having the hardest time.
It seems like a simultaneous global economic slowdown, and there just doesn't seem to be that cue to get back to recovery. But so let me ask you this, and of course we follow a number of statistics coming out of the US each day, housing starts, consumer confidence, foreclosures, you name it, we've been following. But can you tell us what would be, in your mind, some of the most important statistics to follow to see a turnaround in those markets in the US?
Well, the consumer is well over 2/3 of the U.S. economy. There's no question that the consumer has to bottom out in terms of confidence and therefore activity in response to that confidence bottoming out and improving. So you'll see consumer sentiment numbers, you'll see more important dollar sales at retail stores stop plummeting, bottom out, and begin to move up. The same with housing prices, because it's all part of the same package. So the consumer is crucial to this. Having said that, I think that you will also need business investment, capital expenditures from business also to move up. In the past, that's been a key to stimulus. In the 1960s, in a different type of recession, but a significant recession, John F. Kennedy did investment tax credits, which stimulated business to invest. We'll get some of that when we get the solution to this package, things that will stimulate the economy directly. So far, unfortunately, some people believe that this huge package we have right now will be at best a partial solution.
Okay, so what's also interesting over the past few months is that there's been a real shift in investment strategy. Those, of course, going for stocks and looking at alternative solutions for investment. And of course, gold has spiked, not just here in India, but around the world. And also US treasuries are also seeing some never before seen spikes. Your thoughts on how the typical portfolio is changing for investment in the United States?
Well, one of the things I'm seeing, Mihir, is people going from the equity portion of a company's investment potential to its balance sheet, going into the debt instruments. And one of the reasons for that, if you look, for example, a great example would be Warren Buffett's recent foray into investing in some large blue chip companies in the U.S., most recently, I think, Tiffany's, where he's getting 10% and more current returns on his investment. So you have equity types of returns locked in the fixed income part of the balance sheet of these companies. Having said that, I think gold and treasuries, a lot of people are saying we're moving toward a bubble in each of those. Sometimes the crowd is right, and it's possible that with all the heavy treasury borrowing in the U.S. over the next couple of years, that these kinds of yields, well under 2%, in some cases under 1%, depending on where you are in the maturity spectrum, that these will prove to have been laughably low yields. It's possible, but people have been carried out recently betting against the U.S. Treasury market. In the terms of gold, I think once again you have fear overtaking greed and greed overtaking fear, lapping on itself. And I think that people who know more about it than I do think that north of 850 is probably dangerous territory for anyone buying. But I'm no expert in gold.
Indeed, now gold touching beyond 950 levels. Mr. Mike Holland, thank you very much for joining us on the show. We always appreciate your viewpoints, and we look forward to seeing you again here soon. Okay, let's talk about an important legislation that is coming out in the United States. As stated earlier, the fate of many Indian workers in the US lies at an important crossroads. Well, if the stimulus bill coming into effect, this will mean that all companies that receive federal bailout money cannot hire H-1B visa holders, the majority of those who happen to be Indian. Let's find out about this important development as it unfolds in the US.
24-year-old Kirti is not looking forward to work. This weekend, he found out that the U.S. Congress has decided to restrict American companies that received taxpayer bailout money from hiring foreigners on H-1B work visas. Kirti works for AIG, one of the first companies on Wall Street to be bailed out for $85 billion.
Because I see bad luck smiling all over on my face now. So I've been working from October at AIG, and I'm supposed to file my H1 this April. But with the new rule, I see that that's not something that I could look forward to.
25-year-old Vijay, an MBA student who took out a loan to pay for his college tuition, is especially worried. Vijay is supposed to graduate this summer and has been frantically applying for jobs in a market where 350 US companies have received American taxpayers' money in some form or the other.
It was always my dream to come and stay in this city and to make my career in investment banking field. In this tough market, this new rule has already again distressed the student community.
The H-1B visa program is a controversial one. While respected entrepreneurs like Bill Gates and New York Times columnists like Tom Friedman have been arguing against restricting this program, there are many in favor of these restrictions as they believe this visa takes jobs away from Americans. Now, Congress's decision will make life tougher for Indians in America struggling to survive in an already tough economic environment. The silver lining for India, though, is that this may finally stem our long-standing brain drain problem. In New York, Sarah Jacob, NDTV.
Quite an irony in the US. The Bush administration was thinking about giving amnesty to illegal residents, while legal residents who have worked hard to earn their way to top jobs now face job losses for no fault of theirs. Remains to be seen how this issue is worked out in the mighty US of A. We're going to take a short break now, but more global news coming up on the other side. Stay with us here on NASDAQ Live.
NASDAQ Live brought to you by MVL, because life's all about being happy, developing real estate across India. All new city, enjoy your challenges. And Cadbury Bonville Fine Dark Chocolate. You don't buy a Bonville, you earn it.
The nominees for the CNB Viewers' Choice Car of the Year are F. Honda City, G. Volkswagen Jetta, H. Maruti Suzuki A-Star, I. Skoda Fabia, J. Tata Indica Vista. To vote, just type CNB space your choice and SMS it to 56388, or email your choice to cnb@ndtv.com, or you can log on to ndtv.com or ndtvprofit.com. One lucky winner drives away in the Viewer's Choice car, and another viewer gets a free Mumbai-London return ticket from Kingfisher Airlines. HDFC Ergo General Insurance presents NDTV Profit Car and Bike Awards 2009.
From NDTV Profit and Reliance Money comes a show that identifies the opportunities in the crisis. Our Money. And you don't have to knock any doors. For the first time, top investing advice comes right at your doorstep. Your own corporate offices.
And I, Namrata Brar, will bring Sudeep and other experts to your corporate campuses to answer all your financial planning needs. All you have to do is drop us a word at ourmoney@ndtvmedia.com and we will be there.
Where to invest, when to invest, how to invest. To answer all your questions regarding financial planning, I, Sudeep Bandyopadhyay of Reliance Money, will come to your city and your campus.
Reliance Money presents Our Money Forums. Media partner NDTV Profit.
आपको लगता है रिटायर होने पे जिंदगी ऐसी ही होगी? पर ऐसा ना हुआ तो बिरला सन लाइफ इंश्योरेंस के रिटायरमेंट सॉल्यूशंस, ताकि महंगाई चाहे बढ़ती रहे, आप कल भी जिए आज की तरह।
The all-new Ford Icon Duratorq Diesel. Sensible भी, crazy भी.
दादी माँ, आशीर्वाद दीजिए।
सदा सुखी रहो के लिए डायल 1, भगवान तुझे लंबी उम्र दे के लिए डायल 2, भगवान तुझे चांद सी दुल्हन दे के लिए डायल 3।
डायल 3?
आप कतार में हैं।
Thankfully, technology will never change relationships. At Bank of Baroda, state of the art, straight from the heart.
Ministry of Civil Aviation, the wings of progress.
Welcome back to Nasdaq Live. The severity of the global economic slowdown around the world is being shown perhaps no better day than today as markets around the world are down significantly. Let's get that live check of markets in the United States again, which have been struggling for a while but today are in dire straits. The S&P has gone below 4%. Nasdaq and Dow Jones are also trading very close to being down 4% for the day, and only 2.5 hours of trading have taken place. And you will see the same picture in other markets around the world. Let's get a check on the Asian markets. The FTSE Straits, Hang Seng and Nikkei 225 covering Singapore, Hong Kong and Japan all down, and some significantly. Hang Seng down almost 4% also, and the picture seems to be no different in the continent of Europe. The CAC, DAX and the FTSE 100 also all down for the day. The French exchange CAC down to almost 3%, DAX down 3.5% and the FTSE 100 also down 2.5% for the day. So a simultaneous meltdown in the stock markets around the world. For investors, all that glitters may not be gold, but gold as a commodity is surely doing well in these difficult times. The price of gold is reaching record highs, but there might be more to that price hike than meets the eye. Will gold sustain these levels? What's the story? Let's find out.
Gold today was shining at its brightest as it hit a record high of over 15,000 rupees per 10 grams. But the global safe haven buying for everyone's current favorite commodity is expected to breach even these levels.
अगर एक पैसा भी अगर इंडियन रुपी वीक होता है तो किलो पे 130 रुपया बढ़ जाता है, और जिस तरह से आज सुबह से जो रुपी वीक हुआ है उसके हिसाब से गोल्ड के भाव में बहुत ज़्यादा फर्क पड़ जाता है। 16,000 मार्च एंडिंग तक आएगा, लेकिन एक साथ में कभी भी सोना बढ़ता आया तो थोड़ा बहुत करेक्शन बीच में देता है, फिर उसके बाद ऊपर जाता है।
As gold today rose to a record high, it has jumped almost 40% over the last 4 months. In fact, UBS has forecast gold prices to reach the $1,000 per ounce mark in 2009 from the current $950 or so mark, which at the current dollar-rupee equation could push gold prices to sky-high levels. But the flip side is that the industry members expect demand to be severely impacted in a market that is already flooded with more buyers than sellers, and plummeting demand is also pushing imports down substantially.
December onward, the year-over-year import figure is down by 40% compared to last year. 2007 we have touched around 800 tons. Compared to that, we are just crossing around 400 tons this year.
In fact, gold imports have plunged almost 90% this January alone and are zero for this month so far. The industry is surviving on reserves and scrap gold alone, an indication that even India, the world's largest gold guzzler, is waiting for prices to come down. In Mumbai, Shweta Kapoor for NDTV Profit.
So indeed, gold is bold, but securities trading weakly. The global markets stand on the verge of a very serious economic meltdown. Stay with us as we follow these markets daily on our show Nasdaq Live. For right now, thank you for joining us and have a good night.
Business in 30 minutes.
From equities to the rupee, and both seem equally turbulent.
It is both a meeting of mind and heart.
The margins are under pressure.
Live from Mumbai.
That's a nice sustained climb right through the day.
And Delhi.
We had a CRR cut this week and more liquidity boosters could be coming.
Clearly, the deposits in ICICI Bank are safe.
There is no reason at all to act in haste or give room for panic.
Business Primetime. Weeknights at 8 on NDTV Profit. Business Primetime brought to you by Raymond, the complete man. MVL, because life's all about being happy, developing real estate across India. LIC of India. And Ubercool Hyundai i20. I got it all.
अजय
अजय है ग्रेविटी की एक्सपेरिमेंट कर रहा होगा।
HDFC Bank Meritus Scholarships 2009, India's premier scholarship program. We understand that success makes the world see you differently. HDFC Bank, empowering education.
Syndicate Bank, your faithful and friendly financial partner. Now,
Hello and welcome to Profit at Night. Tonight there's several big stories breaking. We'll take you through each one of them. In fact, our entire team is going to join me here and me on the show tonight to give you a perspective of a story that's breaking. And this is the story of Metas being dissolved. Our team will join us. Besides Mihir and me, we will also have Ashutosh Sharma on what happens to the shareholders of Metas. We've got Vijay Iyer on the view from SEBI and CLB. Devdatta Das from where PC Gupta, the Corporate Affairs Minister, pointed out that Metas was in for trouble. That is the breaking story, and it is also our top story tonight, leading with the headlines. First off, it is Metas mayhem, which has now had a big reason after Satyam linkages show up that this company is also in trouble. Hard move on software as the STPI extension may not come ever again. Gas controversies hit Reliance. Could its gas not be hot enough?
Indeed, welcome to the show. The color of the economic season this time seems to be yellow or gold. This commodities prices hit record highs as it turns out to be the safest haven for investors. That forms also one of our headlines. Gold is bold and investment in the commodity is high. The country's real estate sector is surely in dire straits as major players are forced to reprice their projects with hefty discounts. And an unstimulating stimulus package for Indians employed in the United States. No more H-1B visas for companies receiving bailout money. Okay, let's get the show on the road with a look at the action on today's markets. And it seems to be a global economic slowdown mirroring what happened in Asia and Europe and likely what's going to happen in the US. The Indian markets too were down and down significantly today. Both the benchmark indices, the Sensex and the Nifty, were down over 2.5%. Look at that big dip at the opening of trading and then a smooth, steady decline throughout the day. Rate-sensitive stocks suffered particularly today. The Sensex was down 278 points and the Nifty was also down 78 points, about 2.74% decline for this index in the day. The factors and the indicators surely not pointing to a positive trajectory so far, and February so far has been a difficult time for the markets.
Metas mayhem is the top story. This is the breaking story of the day indeed. This one has finally got the government's scanner and the government's taken a call. They are questioning the possibility of fraud in Metas Infrastructure, the company that's run by Ramalinga Raju's son. The government has found possibility in both companies of Metas Properties and Infrastructure. The company law board is going to remove the Metas management. That is the move by the government this evening. The government has immediately restrained the directors of the Metas firms, asking them not to mortgage properties and not to go ahead with any plan that they have asked to go on air so far.
Finds a strong possibility of the affairs of Metas Infra Limited and Metas Properties Limited having been conducted by its present management with fraudulent intent, breach of trust to the stakeholders of the company in order to prevent the further acts of fraud against the said companies and to the safeguard